All right. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. And now I've got a really, really interesting interview and show on deck for you. In October of last year, I came across Nisa Powers on TikTok, a biological man identifying as a trans female. But something was different about Nisa. He was a competitive athlete, an alpine freestyle and cross-country skier, a tennis player, and a golfer who played on the collegiate and professional levels. He was competing against women, except he had woken up from the lie and vowed to never compete against women ever again. I had spoken to Nisa back in, maybe it was October at that time, and Nisa was still identifying as a trans female. But in recent months, Nisa has accepted his male identity and no longer identifies as trans, just as a feminine man. I was totally fascinated by this journey from woke to awake, and he is here to explain his acceptance of biological reality on this episode of Nightly Scroll. Nisa, thank you so much for being here with me.
Here, I love that you have your own show now, and you're doing it for yourself. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, and your story is one that I absolutely needed to get out there, because I think the more people who see someone who's had this gender confusion and this dysphoria and come out on the other end without the gender affirming care and without going as far as to, chop off body parts or make any of these drastic long-term changes, I think it's important for children and for even parents to see that you don't have to go down this road. You can treat it in other ways. You don't need to change your biological reality because you can't. And unfortunately, I feel like you were sold a lie. But I want to start at the beginning for people who don't know your story. What does it feel like as a child, or when did you start feeling these confusing dysphoric thoughts?
Yeah, I think that gender dysphoria definitely has a conception point. I think that there is a moment where it happens, whether it's something that your parents do or say or introduce you to. For me, it was in high school. I was a very flamboyant guy. I was a cheerleader and a dancer and just an athlete on different levels. And all my friends were girls. I kind of leaned towards the fashion side of expressing myself and makeup. And those were sort of my timeline that I later recounted to a therapist. And they said, maybe you're trapped in the wrong body. So that was definitely a conception point for me, is saying your hobbies and what who you are in life actually ties into your gender identity.
Right. And you can be a man and like fashion. There are male fashion designers, Christian Louboutin and Tom Ford and what have you. I mean, you don't have to be trans to find fashion interesting or makeup. I mean, there's the Jeffree Stars of the world and Patrick Ta's of the world. There are makeup artists and, makeup creators who are male or they're gay. Yeah. And it's okay. You can have these interests and it doesn't negate your biological sex, or it doesn't matter. Right. So I thought it was interesting. You said there something about therapy where the idea of being trans was introduced to you in therapy. So when you were in high school and so I don't want to ask really why you were in therapy, but while you were in therapy, was it because you had come out to your parents saying, hey, I am having these feelings where I don't feel comfortable in my own body? How did the therapy start?
Yeah, it was 100%. I was in therapy because I told my parents that I didn't feel like a boy anymore. So, the knee-jerk reaction is, let's solve this with a professional. But little did they know at that time that professionals were starting to be indoctrinated with this gender ideology that, has now permeated education, the government, and just about anywhere you look. So that's the reason I was there. And that's also the reason for, that being introduced and taking hold of and robbing me of 10 years of my life.
Wow. Yeah. 10 years of being sold a lie that was introduced to you by a therapist, the people that your parents brought you to hopefully not affirm your delusion or your dysphoria, but treat it. But however, therapists now, like you said, are so indoctrinated. They are not treating gender dysphoria. They are affirming it. It's crazy when you think about whenever you go to a therapist, let's say you go for anxiety disorder or OCD or anorexia, bulimia, any one of those issues that you deal with, the therapist would never say to you, "You're right. Let's keep you in this pattern. Let's keep you in this prison that you're in." That would never happen. So why do you think that this trans issue is different?
I don't know. I'm just very grateful. I consider myself the boy who lived. Any Harry Potter fans out there would understand that reference, but it's true. I don't know how I had that willpower for 10 years to not go on the path of chopping body parts off, permanent sterilization. But it was definitely something that I was very secretive about, because you cannot be part of that community and still, shun their main tenets, which is you must change your body, you must alienate your family, you must do this. Those are the things I always turned away from. But I still, I would lie to trans friends I had all the time and say, "Oh yeah, I've been on hormones for X amount of years," because it just made me feel like part of the group. But I still held on to the fact that maybe my body is a-okay and I'll grow out of this. And I did. And thankfully I can come back into my manhood without the regret of, having fake breasts or something like that.
Yeah. So, you talked about puberty and being able to come out of this on the other side. Puberty is uncomfortable for everyone. Everyone goes through it. I went through it. I didn't like it. There are certain changes in your body. I mean, it's uncomfortable for everyone. No one likes it. It's not easy. It's not fun. Your body's changing and it's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of kids might go to their parents or maybe a therapist and say, I'm going through these changes. I don't like it. That's normal. But the normal response isn't, "Hey, let's change your biological sex," which obviously we know you can't do. But a lot of people on the left, speaking of puberty, will say, well, we have to trans this kid before they reach puberty because it'll be easier. How damaging would that be?
Yeah, I mean, again, that child may wake up one day in the future. That kid, might be 35 or 40 years old and finally come to a place where they realize that all of those lies that they were fed were just that. They were lies. Yeah. And now where do they go? Where does she go? Where does he go to find their true self? Are they going to do it in a body that doesn't align with their truth? Or are they going to do it, like I did with a fully intact biological reality that I'm thankful for. So what I'm trying to spread is awareness to a lot of parents, and they reach out all the time through my social media channels saying, "What do I do? And what's the best thing your parents did and the worst things?" And the best things they did is they were always there, but the worst thing that a parent can do is affirm that disorder and delusion. Right. But there's a fine line between tough love and alienating your child. And I'm not sure what it is. I think it's different for every family.
Yeah. And you grew up in a conservative family. I find this aspect just interesting because I feel like if you grow up in a conservative family, people don't think that, their kid is going to be trans or however this happens, it's just not the norm. So when you're a 14-year-old boy in high school and you go to your dad, a conservative man, and you say, "Hey, I don't want to be a boy anymore." I mean, what does that conversation look like?
Boy, you better straighten up. It's there is definitely a shock factor. I mean, it was first kind of brought to my family that I was a gay boy. That was kind of understood as, hey, he's probably going to grow up and be with a man. So that was something shocking to get over, just leaving middle school and high school and thinking that, your son is not going to be in a straight relationship. But then adding this layer on top of it, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow for a conservative father. Just I I don't know. Was it my fault? Is it the way I raised him?
Right.
And if my dad ever sees this, which I'll probably give to him, it definitely wasn't. Like they're, like I said, are very distinct inception points of this disorder, and I happen to reflect and find mine. By remembering, and it was the therapy sessions that I was in for not feeling like I was fitting in high school.
Right.
Because I was such a feminine guy. But, that inception point could be, a trans identified teacher that's pushing that topic down a kid's throat. Who knows
Yeah.
what it is? It could be a Disney movie these days, I don't know what it is for everybody, but it is not organic. It definitely comes from a moment in somebody's life.
Yeah, it's totally a social contagion, and it's getting worse now. So I feel like your story is more important now than ever. But you're talking about your dad, and sports is something that bonded you and still bonds you and your dad. You're an athlete, a former collegiate athlete, a professional athlete. I mean, you are really, really athletic, and you bonded with your dad over golf, as did I. I mean, this is, you're obviously very athletic, and this is something that's important to your life. And I mean, there's so much that we can get into. I want to start first by playing video one, guys. This is Democrat State Senator Lindsey Williams from Pennsylvania. She thinks that trans athletes, this is just, it's a myth, it's a nothing burger, and it would have no impact on her. So listen to this.
Female bodies are just as strong, as fast and capable as male bodies. For what reason, other than political gain, are we spending time and taxpayer dollars on a completely made-up issue? Participating in sports gave me the confidence, time management skills, and ability to work collaboratively. Absolutely nothing about having a trans teammate or competitor would have taken those things away from me.
And that might be true. Having a trans teammate or competitor would not have taken away the joy that sports brought her. However, having a man in the female locker room, or changing in front of him, or losing out on scholarships and trophies or whatever else because of that trans competitor, that would have an impact, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, first of all, she doesn't look like somebody that maybe competed at the highest level. She's not a Riley Gaines for sure here. I think that maybe she was in a D3 sort of situation. So when you are competing at a high level, things are different. I mean, look at the San Jose State volleyball player. There are serious injuries, brain injuries that can occur, broken noses, because you're not playing on an equal playing field. I don't think she experienced what is actually going on.
Right. And they love to say that it's not happening. So there were a few funny comments on that video. Someone, Burt Macklin, FBI, wrote, "Right, my wife, who goes to the gym every day, can max bench 135. I took a year off to deal with an MS diagnosis, went back and repped out 225. We are not the same. Stop pretending like we are." Being able to bench 135 as a woman, that is an athlete. I mean, you have to be really, really strong. I go to the gym like 6 days a week. I cannot do that, and I've been going to the gym my whole life, and I've been an athlete my whole life. So that's a woman who's competing on a high level, right? Who cannot compete with a man, and someone else on that post, they wrote, or they commented, go join the NFL and see what happens. And someone else said, this is why I left the Democrat Party. I mean, this is a red pill issue for a lot of people. And I think it had a massive impact on this last election. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of more stories that are similar to mine, because the current administration is definitely handing a tough love approach to this identity disorder. And I think it contributed to me wanting to wake up and hearing from, the highest position in the land saying there are only two biological sexes and they're assigned at birth. And, that goes against everything I was fed for 10 years. Like, oh no, you're a woman, you're a trans woman. And, now hearing that from a leader, it holds something, and it makes you question. So I think that the administration is doing a great job of trying to bring people back to reality. And I think it contributed to my story 100%.
Yeah, and back to the sports issue, because you really are like the perfect guest to talk about this, because you were fed this trans lie. You were convinced that you were a trans woman. You were competing against women in these sports. So you played collegiate golf. And I mean, golf is one of those sports where, it's very strategic, but of course, a man can normally drive further than a woman. And certainly you have different tees on the tee box that you can hit off of. So what was your wake up moment where you were like, I have a massive advantage against these girls?
Yeah, I think when I knew that I was playing at like a 60% capacity, I mean, I would stand on the tee box and not want to sound off any alarms, right? Like I knew my teammates would know something was up if I just crushed it 320 and 50 yards past them. So I would hit with the 3-wood often off the tee, not even a driver, and still needing to lay off on that to kind of be in that general area. So yeah, I mean, it wakes you up when you are fed those lies that you're equal, and then you see it firsthand for yourself. Like, I might be the same height and weight as some of these girls, but in no means are we equal. Like if I was 5'9", 150, and my equal female competitor is 5'9", 150, my strength advantages are very clear when you're playing at the same high level.
Totally. And you have these governing bodies in the world of sports, the NCAA on the collegiate level, you have the IOC on the global level with the International Olympic Committee. And they say that, if you transition after a certain age, or if you have a certain testosterone level, that's enough to level the playing field. But when you were in your transition, did you experience any difference in ability at all?
None. Absolutely none. And I think that I said this to you before, if you want a change to occur, like you can manifest that in your head. Like if you believe you're weaker, you're probably going to be weaker. So, and again, your career of sitting on a couch versus somebody that's a professional athlete is never going to match up. So I think a lot of these trans identified men are believing that they're weaker because they're being fed those lies. So when they go and they try an event, either they shock the world and they're definitely not, or they're manifesting whatever lie they're being told, and maybe they do appear on the same playing field.
So, you're on the tee box, you're clubbing down, you're trying to not get caught, really. You don't want to show up and, blow everyone out of the water. So what was the moment where you had the change of heart, where you said, I can't compete against women anymore?
I think when I realized I was doing it for more camaraderie than a sport, and realizing that I knew I could beat everyone on the field. And it just wouldn't be right. Like I don't see how it sits well with some of these men that, blow these women out of the water, like on track meets. I think I saw recently, like, what kind of person are you where you blow the entire field out of the water and you have no second thought? Like you have no remorse. You have no, I'm not, I feel like as athletes, we all hold some bit of integrity with us, right? Like, you're not supposed to take steroids, that you're not supposed to hit below the belt. Like
you're not supposed to cheat.
Yeah. So where does this come from? I mean, you're competing against somebody that is dealing with a very strong identity disorder. And I think that's what we need to realize is that, these people are being overwhelmed by this gender dysphoria, and it's taken a hold on every aspect of their life.
Yeah, they probably
So
don't even like feel guilt because they're so affirmed in their delusion. They have, their therapist, the school, the NCAA, all their coaches. Everyone's afraid to say what they really want to say, so they're just affirming it, right? Like, yeah, you can go play with the girls. Yeah, beat the hell out of them. Like no one's saying no. So I think because they are so delusional, and I hate to say that word because I really do think it's a sickness, like it's a mental illness, but I don't think that it's really clicking with them.
no, it's not. And it is a mental illness, and that's why I want to, really tell people that it's not a lifelong condition. Like if you want the truth and you want healing, it will come to you, but you'll have to work at it. I mean, if you've been programmed for X amount of years, it's going to take some time to heal, but you can heal. I mean, you can heal from bouts of depression. You can heal from bouts of anxiety. You can also heal from a life filled with dysphoria. But the only way to do it is if you welcome truth in. But if you continue to, ingest the same sort of media that's telling you that you're a woman and you should be competing against women in sports, of course you're never going to heal. You got to look for the truth if you want it.
So when you decided I'm not going to compete against women anymore, who did you go to? Your coaches? What did they say?
They said, well, yeah, you're definitely going to keep competing. You're a woman. At that time, I was a trans identified man. I was saying that I was a trans woman. They said, no, because they've been fed the same sort of lies too, that trans women are women. I think we're starting to go down the path where people realize at least that trans women are not women, they're trans women. But we will finally get to the point where we realize that trans women are, trans identified men, and people who are dealing with that sickness of gender dysphoria. I think we're a long way away from it. But no, when I told them that, they said, of course you're going to compete with the women. You're a woman. Trans women are women. Everyone wears these shirts around campus or whatever. Like that's all I'm supposed to believe. Right.
Wow. A lot of people, they'll say that, well, the solution to all of this is just have a trans league. Just have a trans league. Just have all the trans players compete against each other. And that doesn't work because there aren't enough trans athletes to compete against each other. I mean, especially in volleyball, it's like, how many people do you need on both sides of the net, or soccer or what have you? I mean, you can't have 3-on-2 or whatever. I mean, they're just simply, it's like a pipe dream kind of solution. But even in a perfect world, if you had a trans league, wouldn't the trans females blow the trans males out of the water?
Of course. And I think that, it should be labeled an open league, not a trans league, but just a league where somebody doesn't want to play against women because they feel like a man, or vice versa. But of course, a biological male will always beat a biological female in strength and endurance-based sports. I think most people are awake to this now, but it really is bizarre that, governors like the governor of Maine wants to hold on to this lasting bit of, I don't know, social contagion, like we said, and say, no, trans women are women. Like, I don't see how you're still holding on.
And facing funding cuts from President Trump and his administration. I mean, is it worth it to hold on to the lie?
I don't. I've never been a governor of a state before, but I feel like I would want
maybe
funding
one day
for my schools. Yeah. I would want funding, rather than to watch men blow out women in sports. But that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, anyone with, a functioning brain would probably want the same thing, especially if you're in charge of schools and sports and extracurricular activities. I mean, it would behoove her to do what the Trump administration is asking of her, or else she's not going to have the funds to do much of anything in her state. They won't have much to show for it. But, you talked about this open, what do you call it? Like an open league or an open, you're not competing in the women's competition or the men's. It's just this like open, if you want to, you can. And I think, I want to share. Redux reported on this. There is a case recently a male student has just won gold in the girls varsity high jump at a Portland Interscholastic League meet in Oregon. So this is also a trans athlete who goes by the name Leah now. So we all know the story of Leah Thomas, the UPenn swimmer. Now this is Leah Rose, and he goes to Ida B. Wells High School, and he cleared the high jump 4 inches higher than his female opponents. And so they apparently, this high school and the Portland Interscholastic League, they allowed him to compete at a different time than the female competitors. So he wasn't, jumping with the females, but he still came out on top. They listed him as the winner. So it's like, well, who cares? I mean, if he's not competing with the women, physically, but you're still going to take his score and slap it at the top of the leaderboard. I mean, what does that do?
Yeah. What I think is great is that this administration has really empowered female athletes to be able to stand up for themselves. Oh, I love.
Yeah, this in the gray sweatshirt, that's Leah Rose. Yeah.
Leah's of a feather flock together, I guess. But, I have seen even disc golfers, females standing up and saying, look, I'm not playing against that.
Yeah.
The fencer the other week. I think that, again, this tough love administration on biological reality is saying, look, if you are a woman and you are uncomfortable and you recognize unfairness, you have that ability to stand up for yourself. And I feel like the last 4 years that wasn't available to them because they would be kicked out of school or sued or something. Now there is a lot of reality coming back. And while it might not be the main opinion of higher education, it's starting to become acceptable, at least for you to stand up for your safety and well-being.
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing, I believe, is the erasure of women's sports. If we keep allowing men to compete on the same playing field as women, I mean, women have no shot. And even recently, I had reported this on my show. I think it was this week or maybe it was last week, but in the UK, there was some kind of billiards competition. And in the women's competition, there are 2 dudes facing off for the championship. And it's like, how is no one seeing this and calling out the lunacy? I mean, and I'm not saying people, because I mean, you and I and all the people in the live chat right now, I mean, we know that this is crazy and most people in the world think that it's crazy, but why aren't people in these governing bodies not seeing oh, well, we have 2 trans individuals competing for the title?
Are they allowed to see it? I feel like, if they do see it and say it, they're going to lose their job. You'll lose your cushy IOC commissioner job or whatever it is. But imagine you didn't grow up a girl playing pool, but imagine that was your thing. And you see the Super Bowl of pool or whatever, and you're watching 2 guys play against each other. Does that make you want to, hone in on your craft anymore?
Hell no. I would just give up. I mean, and the sad thing is we're seeing a lot of women standing up for themselves, and by standing up for themselves, they're taking a knee or they're not competing against the men. And how sad is it that in order to take a stand and in order to protest this, they are losing out on playing the sport or participating in the activity that brings them joy. And then the men still get to do it. It's like, I'm proud of them on one hand because they're standing up for themselves, but it's like, it almost seems like we're letting the men win.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we've done for generations, right? So keep on doing it.
Yeah. Well, you've had quite the wake up in the last few months where you were a trans identifying female. You are now extremely comfortable with the fact that you're a man who just looks different and wants to do your hair certain ways. And, you're very public about this on social media. So have you gotten hate since making this change? Do you get hate from fellow trans people? Do you get hate from conservatives? Who is giving you the most flack for this?
For sure. I get hate from the trans community or the community parading the mental illness that is gender dysphoria. They don't want to see, like, imagine if there was a group of depressed individuals in America and they hated somebody who finally got past depression and had been happy in life again. That's what's going on here. Is I get these messages saying, do you realize the damage you're doing to your community? And first of all, it never was, and it never will be my community. But like, aren't you happy for me that I've realized who I am and I've escaped the identity disorder that was, this fake identity? Like, aren't you happy for me in the slightest? But no, because they're still living this lie. And there are so many people that they're up to their chest in this fake identity, and they'll go to war for it. I mean, these people send you messages that you think, like, you're a lot further gone than just thinking that you're a woman. You're actually very disturbed in the head, and I don't know what else somebody suffers with besides identity disorder like gender dysphoria, but it seems like there are other disorders that tag along with it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's scary because a lot of the leftists are pretty violent also.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get hate messages and death threats and whatever, so I can only imagine the kinds of messages that you're getting. It's really, the internet's a really scary place. But
it's also a place where I can tell my truth, and moms are able to go back to their sons who might be suffering with the same thing and be like, look at him. You can be a gay guy. You can be a guy who wants long hair and likes fashion and still live your truth. And I do get messages from moms saying, thank you. Like, I'm able to share your story with my son, and it's helping.
Yeah. I think it was in 2020, the NIH did a study that said that it's almost 2-to-1. There are more male to female transitions than female to male. And I want your take on this, if you feel comfortable answering it. But it seems to me like these are a lot of gay men that maybe they don't want to be gay. And they think that if they transition to a biological female or as close as they can get to it, then they can date men and they won't be gay anymore. Is there any truth to that, do you think?
I think there is a little bit of truth to that. Charlie Kirk does a really good job of describing the trans women in this world. Like, I feel like 90% of them that come out in their 20s or 30s or later, it is a very fetishized thing where this is how they get off. But then that small percentage of them that it is onset early on in life, like it was for me, could be a number of reasons. It could be a weak father figure. It could be, which wasn't the case for me. But what was the case was, of course, I was uncomfortable being a gay guy in high school. I had never been with a man in high school, but I was scared because everybody's making fun of me, using, derogatory language or whatever. And I'm like, maybe this is the bad thing, but I'm one of the girls with my friend group. Maybe this is the easy way out. And again, that's not what my thought process was, but that could very well be what's happening, subconsciously, but behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy for you that you've
Thank you.
kind of seen the light in a way. And it's not even that you've seen the light, you've just seen your own biological reality and you're comfortable with it. And I think that's really what it is. It's just being comfortable in your own skin. And what a beautiful thing that is. So I'm extremely happy for you. I hope you don't have anywhere to go because I want to get your take on some of the headlines that have come out recently. Sure. So thank you for sharing your story, but we're going to get into the nitty gritty of what's going on here. Hopefully you can help me make sense of it. So now there's a school that is putting menstrual products in the men's bathroom. This is in Baltimore. They're proposing a bill so that tampons and pads will be available in the men's restroom. The bathroom debate, it heats up every once in a while. I feel like it's like the talk of the town, and then people kind of forget about it, and then it's reinvigorated. I think, who's the congressman who is trans identifying? I think They go by Sarah McLaughlin or something like
Sarah
that. I'm
Rhode
just
Island
forgetting
or
it.
something,
Yeah, I'm just forgetting
Delaware.
the name off
Yeah.
the top of my head. But, you know, certain situations like that where it pops up and, you know, he wants to use the women's restroom and Congresswoman Nancy Mace is saying no. So the bathroom debate heats up all the time. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that men should use the men's bathrooms, and I think women should use women's bathrooms. But then everybody fights back and saying, "Well, trans men that have full beards, do you want them in
Right.
the women's bathroom?" No, I don't. I think that they're first of all, trans men are not the problem here. Like, I feel like they're going to comfortably use a gender neutral bathroom or use a men's room without any sort of flack. Like,
Yeah, it's the
that's
men
not,
pushing their way. They like feel
yeah,
entitled. I feel like the trans
because
women
that
have a
is,
more, yeah, they're more
it's
aggressive
a,
about it.
wait, because they're men.
Yeah.
Like, I was, I mean, there's no denying that. And I think that those 90% of the trans identified men that, this is a fetish for them. This is like a big milestone in your life. Like,
Right.
I get to pee next to a woman. Oh my gosh. Like, this is really kind of hot and heavy. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I think that those people need to be stopped on different levels, obviously, but especially in an intimate situation like a public bathroom. Yeah, no, you're not welcome there, because the men's room is for men.
Yeah, it's
That's my take. Yeah.
totally. I think, you know, I think the only way to get a solution, an actual solution, is to pass a bill that says any new build, you have to have single stall bathrooms with a sink and like a wash area either in the stall or maybe it's a communal wash area. I personally don't care if I have to wash my hands next to a man. I don't care. But I don't want to be doing my business next to one. But, you know, what you said earlier about there are certain people who take their transition really seriously and they look like a woman if they're a man, or they look like a man if they're a girl. And that, you know, I think there is something to that. Like what you present as socially can make people feel comfortable or uncomfortable, whether it's your biological sex or not. I've seen videos on TikTok and on Instagram of trans men. Sorry, I'm like, this all gets like confused in my head. I'm like, what way does it go? Trans men who really do look like men. If I saw them in the stall next to me, I would say there is a man next to me. It would make me feel uncomfortable, even though they might have a vagina. I have no idea what's going on downstairs, but there is something to that, like what is socially acceptable. And to your point, I think there are a lot of trans women who they transition for like the social accolades and like the clout that they get for being trans. Like I think being trans gives you some kind of a social currency if you're seeking a community that you haven't found, or you're seeking attention maybe.
Yeah.
And I've showed pictures on this show of men in like horrible makeup, and it's like, you're a dude in a dress. Like you're not even trying, you know? So I don't know. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think the social currency is 100% relatable. I see it like there's a lot of very intellectual young adults that feel like they need to be trans in order to be the best leftist possible and to get into the Ivy League schools. You don't need to. You can be a boy, I promise you, and hopefully your test scores and everything will allow you to get into the school of your choice. You don't need to identify as Rain, Water, Wilson, or whatever.
Yeah, with Zer pronouns or whatever.
You don't need that, but it's true. Like I feel like in order to be a good leftist, you better not be a white dude or a white girl. You better you better have something else tied to you.
Yeah.
So it's sad that I feel like young adults feel like they need to have that social diversity in order to fit in with their friend group.
Right. Well, a new poll came out. This is the Daily Wire did this poll. It was by Signal, a Daily Wire exclusive by Signal, that found that 66% of Americans don't want their tax dollars to go towards gender transition procedures, whether that's surgeries, cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, etc. I agree with that. I don't want to pay for someone's boob job. I wouldn't expect the American taxpayer to pay for mine if I decided to get one. That's technically gender affirming care, right? If I'm a woman and I believe that a boob job would make me more of a woman. But 43% of Kamala Harris voters actually agreed that they don't want federal taxpayer dollars to go to this.
Well, are they paying taxes anyways? The Kamala Harris supporters.
They love taxes.
That's good to know that there are some that, I don't know if they were smart enough to realize what they were voting for, but let's just say that there are some people that hold on to the bit of reality that you shouldn't pay for, affirming someone's mental disorder. I mean, that's what it is here. Like, I can't imagine like somebody with anorexia or bulimia, like we're paying, we're paying for them to dive further, because you're not paying for, like, I can understand, like, if there is if you are on social welfare and you're paying for, therapies and things to cure the brain of this disorder, like, okay, that's just part of that social welfare, but you're paying to go further into this delusion.
Yeah, totally. And this kind of made me think of the whole transgender in the military debate, because, Trump has said, and this has been, wildly controversial on the left, that, transgender people were signing up for the military to get free gender affirming care and surgeries. And it's like, you should not be in the military if you're, you need a boob job to make yourself feel better. I mean, we want the best of the best in the military. And I think we forget that serving in the military is a privilege. There are, if you have diabetes, or you have, anxiety, or you have all these things, if one of your legs is, longer than the other one, I mean, you can have issues that prevent you from being in the military. I mean, not everyone gets to do that. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently had just eliminated this sex-based, he's making it merit-based, where if you want a combat role in the military, the women have to be on the same physical level as the men, which is interesting because, as we know, based on this entire conversation, women and men are not the same physically, and men have a huge advantage. So this would essentially eliminate a lot of women from combat roles. But again, serving in the military is a privilege. It's not a right.
Yeah, I feel like, the FBI and all of those agencies have the physical requirements of the 20 pull-ups, or, you have to run an 8-minute mile and things like that. If you're in a combat role, that's taking it to the next level. So if you're a woman who that is your dream to do that, like, kudos to you, but you got to know going into that you need to be able to, do 100 push-ups or whatever the guys are doing. I think that's fair. I mean, there's a lot of women that I would have no issue with support, with defending me, but I want to make sure that you're strong enough to do it.
Yeah. Well, over on CNN, they did a town hall with Senator Bernie Sanders, and Anderson Cooper, he got his foot put in his mouth. This one, he called this person by the wrong pronouns. Take a listen to this.
Paul, we're back with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Polling and turnout data indicate that none of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that the question that she asked Senator Sanders was about men turning away from the Democrat Party. And my question to you is, do you think Anderson Cooper peed his pants or pooped his pants in that moment?
Maybe a little bit of both. I don't think, Bernie kind of had the look of Biden in 2018 or so. Like, he had that kind of like early onset dementia. And so I think someone should take a closer look at him.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing I have for you that I want you to react to, this is, we're taking a turn here from politics to Hollyweird. Yeah, there's the look of just utter confusion on his face. He's like, what did she just say? I have to call them, they, what's happening? We're moving to Hollyweird now. So Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, they had a daughter, Shiloh. And Shiloh Jolie Pitt, when she was younger, she wanted to go by John. And they let her express herself wearing suits and things like this in media appearances and on the red carpet. And now Shiloh Jolie Pitt is back to being a girl. So I do have to give Angelina Jolie credit for not medically castrating her daughter, because it seems like, same as you, Shiloh has just become more comfortable. Maybe it was a puberty thing, and she's found herself.
I love that. And, that's what I tell parents too, that reach out to me, is like, my parents didn't encourage me to wear girls' clothes or women's clothes if I wanted to, but it's like, they didn't say no. They didn't say, no, you can't get your ears pierced, or no, you can't wear makeup. So I think that's important. Like, let your kid express themselves, but but definitely tell them you're not, expressing yourself because you're affirming a gender identity that you're not. You're just maybe becoming more of yourself. And I think that's important for kids to know, as well as parents. Like, kids, can do a lot of different things with their expressions, but it doesn't make them a different gender. It just, that's just what you do as a kid. You play around with what you want to look like.
Yeah, totally. I mean, growing up, I had next door neighbors that I played with all the time. And the kid my age was a boy, and he had an older sister and a younger sister. And like, anytime we all played together, we were painting his nails and putting makeup on him. He was like our guinea pig.
Where is he now?
Well, he's still a guy. So, to your point, it's okay to joke around or, be comfortable in your sexuality and in your biological reality and just mess around. So, Niza, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for telling your story. Keep up the good fight. And where can people find you?
So TikTok is Dream Roulette. And then Instagram, X, and YouTube is my name spelled out, Niza Powers. And again, it was great to have you interview me again, Hayley. Did you ever have a goth phase or a scene phase growing up?
No, I had a very preppy phase.
Okay. Well,
but you have a podcast now, right? You just started?
No podcast, but there is a series on YouTube I'm doing called Dear Niza, which is where parents are writing into me and I'm answering my questions, their questions with my story. Okay, great. Well, if you are a parent out there, or a parent who is struggling, their child they have gender dysphoria, reach out to Niza, find her on YouTube. She will assist in any way that he can. So thank you, Niza, so much for being here and telling your story. Awesome. Talk soon. Thanks, Hayley. Of course. Very interesting conversation. I think hearing his perspective is really, really, it's something that conservatives don't often do, which is reach out to these people and find out why they are the way that they are, and how we can help, and how we can save other children from this delusion that they're being fed by the left. So very important work. And now we are getting to scrolling time. All right. Now, the SAVE Act passed in the House today. The SAVE Act would require U.S. citizens to show voter ID, to show proof of citizenship when they vote in person. Imagine that. Now, the leftists, the Senator Chuck Schumer, he's saying this won't pass in the Senate. We can't let this happen. It's not going to happen. But he said that about Trump's spending bill, and that got passed as well. So hopefully
when the SAVE Act goes to the Senate will ram this through and Trump will just sign it away. But earlier today, the Democrats were freaking out about it. This is Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. She is 36 years old from California, of course. Listen to this.
Did you change your last name when you got married? Let me tell you how Republicans are trying to take away your right to vote. Today, Republicans are putting a bill on the floor called the SAVE Act that would require you to prove your citizenship in order to vote or change your address to vote. Now, you may think, well, that makes sense. We only want citizens to vote. True. It is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. Let me repeat. It is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections.
But they do.
What this bill would do is say that you need to prove your citizenship. How do you do that? A birth certificate, a passport, and you'd have to go in person to do so. So what does that mean? It means if you're a person who changed your name because you got married, your birth certificate is not going to match what your driver's license says now, and they're going to think you're not eligible to vote.
So get it changed.
If you are a military service member serving overseas and you are not in the same place as your birth certificate and you're not able to go in person to change your registration, you wouldn't be able to vote. If you are just like me and would have to call your mom to find your birth certificate, you might not be eligible to vote. And if you don't have $170 laying around to get a passport, you might not be eligible to vote. This could impact almost 150 million Americans. That's almost as many as the amount of people who voted in last year's election. So the SAVE Act is not solving a problem, it's creating one. And that's why I'll be voting no.
There are so many things wrong with what she said. First of all, it is not taking away or infringing on anyone's right to vote. Even if you get married and you decide to change your last name, you go and you get the documents changed. You get a new driver's license or you can get a new passport. And I reported on this last week. I asked my friends who are married. It takes about a week to get a new license. It takes a little bit longer to get the passport. So if you get married in October or September in the months leading up to the election, don't change your name. Keep your name, and then you have the whole rest of the next year to change your documents and get everything done for the next election. Be smart about it. We're asking people to be smart. Assume that they're not as dumb as this woman in Congress who says she's 36 years old and she still needs to call her mom to figure out where her birth certificate is. Did anyone else pick up on that? My mom gave me my birth certificate probably when I went to college and said, this is yours now. And I've managed to keep it and I know where it is. Okay? It's really not that hard. And she was elected into Congress to represent us. So, whew. Then she was talking about the military members not being able to vote because their birth certificate would not be where they were serving. Like, no kidding. No one in the military is serving in their hometown, living in their parents' bedroom. I mean, what do you mean? They if they're serving abroad, they get absentee ballots. I mean, there are ways to do this. It's amazing to me the hoops that they will jump through in order to essentially allow non-citizens to vote. Because she says it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote. Yeah, we know, but it's happening. So how do we stop it? Well, we make people show their ID and that'll stop it. But they don't want that. So we all know what they want. We all know what they're thinking. But thankfully, yeah, this is her. Sarah Jacobs, 36 years old. Meet Sarah. It should just write, I still need to call my mom to find my birth certificate. And you voted for me. Dumb idiot. Seriously. But that's California for you. Anyway, a man in a Make America... Oh, wait, no. The first video that I have for you is a woman in a Make America gay hat, but the man who pulled up next to her in the car triggered her. So watch this.
I like your MAGA hat. Yeah, Trump. Woo!
It says gay.
Oh, I know.
Just checking.
Trump fan.
Never know.
Trump?
No. It says make America gay again.
Great. Again.
Gay.
I know, but we love Trump, right?
You're an effing moron. That's what she says. She's driving away in her gay hat. She's like, it says gay. Like, he can read it. He's trolling you. Anyway, a man in a MAGA hat went to a Cybertruck. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. I'm getting confused here. The first one is a man in a MAGA hat at a takedown Elon Musk protest. Watch this. He's really triggering the libs.
Made in China. Hey, get out of the street, jack off.
Off of a Mexico fascist USA. No ice. No pig.
He's just got this big smile on his face the entire time. Someone said, get out of the street, jack off. Okay. This next one was a takedown Elon Musk protest again, except this couple showed up in their Cybertruck. Here's what they were met with. It says, we went to a Tesla takedown in Boca Raton in a Cybertruck.
Hey guys, this is a turning lane.
Middle fingers in the air. Ooh. Middle fingers in the air. The Cybertruck driving by, all their signs. Get the hell out of here, he says. Not intelligent, she says. Not intelligent because they're driving a Cybertruck? I mean, these people are crazy. They end up driving by again. There's a guy, deport muskrat, with a Ukraine flag. They drive by again. And this woman, she stuck her fat you-know-what in their face. She's wearing these ugly mom jeans, and she got her middle finger up on her butt cheeks. It's just like, you guys are really, really something else. Not classy, if you ask me. Now, I'm going to save the last video for tomorrow because we've hit an hour, and I'll save it. It's very, very cute. This is the teaser. I've got a very cute baby video for tomorrow. So if you don't like baby videos, here's your warning. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Make sure that you're subscribed on Bongino Report. Make sure you're subscribed on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. In the meantime, you can follow me at Hayley Caronia on social media, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.